What's up, guys? I want to do a little review on the Flytanium handle replacements for the Benchmade 60 series balisong. Pretty much did the same thing with these as the 51. Stock the knives, left a little bit to be desired, and what Flytanium did was adjust weights, in this case weight and length, to make it more of a flipper friendly version. Start out the review by saying I originally had a 63 in my collection. Never really touched it, never flipped it, it just sat and sat and sat. Now, with the Flytanium handles, it has turned into absolutely one of my top flippers, one of my most flipped knives that I have. So if you guys are considering the Flytanium and have a 60 series knife, just keep that in mind. It turned a knife that I hardly ever touched into one of my absolute favorites. Saying that, let's get into the specs. Stock, the knife was very short, 4.85 inch handles and 6.5 inch or 6.5 ounce overall weight. With the new handles, the handles are full titanium slabs, much like the old stainless slabs. But now it is 4.5 ounces overall weight, which is absolutely perfect in my opinion. And the handles are 5.45 inches long, another perfect in my opinion. So, took the stock heavy short little 60 series and made it into a nice lighter, longer top tier flipper in my opinion. Blade of course transfers over, stays the same. Benchmade likes to keep their blades about the same, about 4.25 from tip to the beginning of the handles. You can see they do fluctuate a very little bit, but generally you're looking at about 4.25 inches. Now you are extending the handles a lot and not extending the blade at all, but considering the amount of weight that you drop, it can only be good for the 60 series. The hardware, of course, that transfers right over as well. You're looking at standard no bushing 6-bolt design, except the 60 series is not a press fit like the 40 series. So when you are switching out your handles from stainless to titanium, you're not going to have to hammer them like when you have to do maintenance on a 40 series. So that's great. Pivots slide right out. You guys know I'm a big fan of Zen pins. No tang pin to worry about deforming, getting loose, falling out. This system will last forever. This handle distance will never change. Really love the Zen pin design. Nice and solid. Really not a lot of bounce to it. I know a lot of Zen pin knives have that bounce to them, but I do believe with the full titanium and it not being a liner knife, just a standard sandwich knife, that takes away some of the bounce. Moving on to the bottom, you have your stainless spacers. Same thing, pivots transfer right over from the stock 60 series to 6-bolt with the Torx head on the female. But these have a nice flat spot in the pivot so it won't spin, which is great. Everybody should do that on their balisongs, have that flat spot, and that way the hole in the spacer isn't completely round, it's got a flat spot in it so they won't spin. Perfectly designed. I believe absolutely everybody should do that on all their pivots because it doesn't get much better than that. And it even has a Torx head on the back, so if somehow it would spin, you could stop it from there too. I believe that's just for symmetry though. So overall looks of the knife, this is the version 0. They do come in 2 versions. The version 0.5 actually, instead of having holes that go all the way through, it's got fullers, so they're like cups. Same shape, but they're like cups. And that design carries all the way down the knife. So the version 0.5 is a little bit more neutral balanced. Even having these 0.2 ounce spacers, stainless steel back here, the version 0.5 does have a more neutral feel to it. I did own one, so I can speak from experience on that. I do prefer the version 0 with the holes and the untouched, unmilled part here, because it does leave a little bit of rear bias. Now, for those of you that have flipped Benchmades before, there really was no Benchmade with the rear bias because they were all channel construction until the 51, of course. But that's still a neutral knife. Now, with the Flytanium 60 series, specifically the version 0, you are getting a Benchmade with a little bit of a rear bias. Nothing like the Alpha Beast where it's got a ton back there, or say like a Tachyon Tonto, where they got a ton of weight back there. But it does have a little bit. So being a 4.5 ounce overall weight knife, and having that little bit of weight in the back, I believe that to be a very, very ideal spec sheet, if you will. Feels great, very fast, flies out of your hand very quickly. No, it's just flipper air, very, very round handles. They feel great. Fanning's very natural. I know with the extra square knives, I know fanning can be a pain. Transitioning between fingers can also be a pain with a very square knife. But these feel great. Very, very comfortable. Like I said, this is probably top 3 in my collection for flipping. And just looks, it's a beautiful, beautiful knife. You can see I also have the 67. This was the 63. I also have the 67. Good friend of mine's knife that was in for a little bit of work. Now you can see, surprisingly enough, the buoy weighs just a fraction more than the Tonto, which was weird to me. I would have thought the Tonto weighed more, having all that meat up there. But the buoy does weigh just a touch more, and I mean a touch. I mean like a couple of hundredths of an ounce. But they do behave very differently, because you can see where they carry their weight. The Tonto being at the end, having this skinny bottom part and the tip, and the buoy having the spine thicker here. Oh, crown spines, by the way, big thumbs up. The buoy having the more meat in the spine and having the tapered off tip, so they do behave very differently. I do believe the buoy to be faster. It's more agile. To me, for my style, feels a little bit better. I know guys that are more intricate and that are going to like more of a balanced knife are going to prefer the 67, just because of the way it feels. The extra weight in the tip, I almost think of it like a baton, you know, a skinny tube with 2 weights on the end. It's very, very balanced. That's kind of how I think of this blade, you know. It's got this skinny tube in the middle, but the weight at the ends, which is very, very good for balance. Fantastic knife. I do love the way the 67 flips. It does feel like it has a great amount of balance. It just takes a little bit of extra force to get it to spin, which obviously is from that extra weight at the ends. The 63 has that added agility because there's less weight on the end. It takes very little force to get it going. I feel like you can be faster with this knife, but I do feel like the 67 has the superior balance. As far as comparing them to other knives, when it comes, for me personally, when it comes to the Flytanium products, which one to get, the clear winner is the 60 series. It's longer, has more of an ideal weight for me. The shape is better. It's not a liner knife. It's a full slab knife. To me, it just feels like it's made better. Excuse me. And with your other knives, probably the closest thing I would compare it to is a Tachyon, because of the balance point is a little bit lower on the Flytanium handles, because they're just so long. Nice thin, long knife. And something that is another positive about it is, if you do own a 60 series, you know how generally good the pivots are, and that just transfers right into here. I flipped this quite a bit, standard pivots, and that's really, I've had bushing knives with more play than that, and from this view you can just see how round they are, and that's just so comfortable. You can see even with the other channel knives, it's a very, very round knife. I'll show you a 4X, better comparison. You can see just how round this is. And with a 51 as well. So very, very comfortable. Feels very good in between your fingers. Like I said, the only Benchmade with that little bit of rear bias to it, which is a very welcome feature to me. Yeah, feels excellent. If you guys have a 60 series in your collection right now and you don't get these scales, you're absolutely crazy. For what it makes the knife, it is absolutely worth the I believe $165 for these scales here. Took a knife that I hardly ever touch and made it into one of my top tier favorite knives to flip.